This room is regularly sponsored by the Mentoring Club and also in partnership with one of our mentors, Sean Flynn, who created the Silicon Valley Startups Club here on Clubhouse. The Mentoring Club is a nonprofit organization whose mission is to provide a mentoring community for aspiring and seasoned leaders. Anywhere in the world, we help working people find mentors who can guide them to develop the skills they need to achieve their career and life goals. We help mentees fulfill their goals through meaningful work that creates positive impact in the world. And as mentees become successful leaders themselves, our dream is for them to become mentors to others. And for this session, this afternoon or morning, in the case of Mark, he is in Australia, our room is focused on one of the mentor-mentee relationships, and we're exploring mentor-mentee stories in the Mentoring Club. And this relationship is between Deepak and Mark. So we aptly called it or entitled it Long-Term Mentoring, 5 years and going with Deepak and Mark. This mentoring match started with understanding one's search for the right next work fit, and it has become an unexpected yet mutually welcomed holistic mentoring journey centered on leadership and life. So I had a chance to catch up with both Mark and Deepak last week, and I was really, really joyous to see how the relationship has transitioned and has evolved over the years. It's truly amazing how time flies. When the Mentoring Club started in 2016, I had to validate my premises or hypothesis about the need for a mentoring community for professionals, and more generally speaking, people in the workforce, and that it could be a global initiative. I met Deepak in 2016. He was already working at UC Berkeley in the organizational leadership development space, and I'll let him talk a bit more about his background and history later. I have known Mark since 1997 from my days in Unisys Philippines. He was the managing principal of Unisys Services Asia Division based in Singapore, and then the VP and managing principal of the Unisys Imaging and Workflow Program based in Pennsylvania, USA. I was the program manager for Unisys Philippines Imaging and Workflow Program then. Mark has been a great role model for me when it comes to empathy, listening and communicating with clients to make them know and feel that he cares about understanding them and also solving their issues. In 2017, when it was time to experiment and prove that a global mentoring platform would work, Deepak and Mark were part of the 11 mentors and mentees that launched our trial global mentoring program. I figured they could be a good match because Deepak's goals in navigating the UC Berkeley organization and Mark's experience of being a director at a university in Melbourne, Australia, lines up. And the rest is history, some parts of which we will uncover as we speak to both of them today. So welcome, Deepak and Mark. I'll start with you, Deepak. Tell us a little bit about yourself, any personal background, and anything about your career and life that you'd like people to know about you.
Thank you very much for that wonderful introduction, Liesel. And hi, Mark, and welcome, Oki. And if anybody else is in the background. Yeah, so, a little bit about myself, personal background. So I've been out of grad school for about 12 years now. And so I've been in the workforce for a little bit. I started out in the field of student affairs, higher education, where I used to work with college students, did a lot with student development, student involvement. And that was kind of my original background. And just over time, I was looking to see what else is there more in life and more in a career, knowing that I was probably not going to go back to school after I just completed my master's. And so that was why I decided to join this mentoring group. And I think it was about that time when, as Liesel said, 2016, 2017, I'd been on my job for about 3 years at that point. And I thought, okay, there's where else can I go? It's assuming that I don't want to just stay in my own organization and at UC Berkeley and just move up within my own office that I was in. So that was kind of the idea. So I thought this would have been a good opportunity just to meet, network, and get a more global perspective on different ways of being mentored for success.
Thank you for that background, Deepak. Yes, I remember. It's interesting how we met. But before we get there, I would like to give Mark the chance or the opportunity to also give a bit of introduction about himself, whatever background, personal and professional, that you would like others to know about you, Mark.
Thank you, and welcome to everybody from Down Under. The first and most important aspect of my current status is that I'm actually a retired. I still sit on a couple of boards, but essentially I'm not working full time anymore. Liesel has adequately described how our connections in the past. I'm ex-IT and ex-services and also ex-education. Corporate life currently for me is kind of a thing of the past, even though I am involved in some boards and participate in their activities, mostly in nonprofit and voluntary organizations that I feel I could give some of my time to in my sort of retired years. I'm a grandfather. Margaret and I have currently have got two granddaughters, and we take delight in seeing them grow up, and we're expecting another one coming soon. This time, I think I was told it was going to be a little boy. So that'll add a bit of excitement to the house. Um, I also mentor some young leaders of my local church community, which has been something that I've been doing for the last 20 years. And I love the ability of listening to what people have to say, what is exciting in their lives. And in some way, if I could make a contribution or give some advice and some guidance, if I'm asked, I would be more than happy to do that. So that has been something that I enjoyed over the last few years.
Well, thank you for that update, Mark, and congratulations for the new grandson coming to join you soon. Going back to the story that we have here, that I focused around the long-term relationship that you both have had. It was funny when we were talking about preparing for this session. We all realized that, oh wow, it's been 5 years, right? So, and that really factored into what is it that we would like to communicate for people who are listening to us now, or even the recording later on in our social media channels. What do they need to know about getting into a long-term mentoring relationship, which in this case was really unplanned? The way that we have structured our mentoring framework is the mentee has a goal, and then there are specific competencies or skills that the mentee needs to develop in themselves. And the mentee can work with the mentor for several months. Once the goal is met, then the mentoring relationship can be paused, or the mentee may need other mentors to work with on other goals. In your case, it's very fascinating that it has lasted for over 5 years. So tell us, Deepak, about your first experience with connecting with Mark and understanding his background. And did you really think that the relationship would last this long?
I wasn't quite sure what to expect when I first met Liesel. I definitely got the sense that it was going to be a combination of a working relationship as well as a friendship. And then shortly after that, when she connected me to Mark, then it's I knew it would be hard to meet Mark in person, and granted, this was before the pandemic when we were all connected on Zoom. So I thought that was at least a time where if I had somebody that I knew in another country or on the other side of the world, that would be a really interesting way to see what life is like from that person's lens, both culturally, socially, and of course professionally in this setting. So I wasn't sure what I was going to expect, but I will say this: I think on a positive note, that the relationship did feel organic. After a while, when Mark and I would meet, we would text intermittently and just kind of talk about life updates. I think that's really where it felt a little bit more organic and natural, and it didn't feel like I was talking to like a mentor specifically. And I think that was good. This was a little bit, the relationship, while set up technically formally, felt a little bit more informal, over time. Unlike the setting where, you might be talking to somebody who's a therapist and a client, it didn't feel like that at all. So I would say just kind of over time, and I was more on this in a little bit, is when I was thinking about my career goals, my career aspirations, then something about Mark, like he definitely had a well-rounded worldview, and that seemed to help me long term.
It really looks like that is the case. The two of you still meeting on a monthly basis to this day proves that. And so, backtracking a little bit, Deepak, you embracing the need to find a mentor. I'm curious about that because I remember we were both attending a networking event, and then I told you about what I was doing with the mentoring club. What was it that attracted you to actually be part of the trial program? Tell us your thoughts a bit on that. I haven't really explored that with you until now.
Liesel and I, we actually met at a New York life insurance seminar. It was through, I met somebody who I had known through my alumni association from the University of California, Riverside, who was hosting this seminar. And it was, the theme was about how to retire, and or at least how to educate others about retirement and like life savings. And then somehow Liesel and I started talking about that, and that led to a conversation about starting a lifetime of networking. And I think what I was looking for was, I think it was 2016, 2017, thinking about like a next step. It was nice to be in a setting that was not my office. It was miles away from Berkeley, where I was. And I think it was that was one of my goals. Is just like, what, there's an entire industry out there beyond the field of student affairs, beyond day to day of student life, and I wanted to learn a little bit more about it. And I think just in the setting that I was, where we met, that kind of gave me a chance to think, yes, if I could get a chance to meet with a mentor or a leader from a different industry, that would give me a chance to expand my worldview. And I think that was something that I was looking to do a little bit more of.
It's perfect timing because earlier you said you were already 3 years into the role that you were in, and you were thinking, okay, what's next? And then we met at that event, and really the power of networking. And then eventually, you came into and joined us in the focus groups, and then that was 2016, and then you joined the trial mentor-mentee program. That's really a wonderful run of fate for us to be able to meet at the right time and at the right place.
Agreed.
So yes. So I'm going to Mark for this question. We heard about Deepak just going into that first session with you, not knowing what to expect, but was pretty open to what can happen. Since you have been mentoring at that point for maybe a little over a decade before you met with him, how do you usually go about managing a first session or an informational session with a mentee?
This is probably the first time that I get involved with a mentoring relationship because number one, it is cross ocean, right? It's international, and we're not in the same city. And number two, we've never met each other. In the previous cases, usually are people who approach me and ask if they could spend time with me. And so they would have known who I was and they would feel comfortable. And therefore, I didn't necessarily have to establish time to build a rapport or build a confidence in that individual. But in the case of Deepak, I was deeply aware that he doesn't know me from a bar of soap, right? So, and he's this strange man being introduced to walk alongside with him to be his mentor. So my attitude was very much to listen to what he has to say, understand where he's coming from and what direction is he looking for in terms of assistance or advice. And I'm also careful because, as you know, the age difference between him and me is quite wide. And I'm sensitive to the fact that sometimes what I describe as old people, like myself, would think slightly differently to the modern day young executives. So I was careful in not trying to give a view that I'm teaching him or come across as someone that has something to impart to him in terms of wisdom or knowledge or whatever it was. So I think the first interactions we had were pretty much seeking out each other. I think he was trying to find out what am I about, and I also tried to figure out in what area could I possibly offer help to him. And so broadly, we were basically comfortable with our own backgrounds because we're quite compatible. Those people who have met Deepak will find that he's a very warm and a comfortable person when you start talking to him. So I guess I had no reservation in thinking that given time, the relationship will develop and I would be able to get to know him more and therefore help him more.
When you talked about this is the first instance that you had to meet somebody that didn't know you before, that is actually where the power of the mentoring club's vision comes in, because I remember when I was trying to figure out what my give back would be, reflecting Mark, you were one of those whom I consulted, right? That I felt that there might be a need in the future for people to come to a community or an organization where they know that the mentors have already raised their hands to be a mentor to others, versus trying to figure out in an awkward manner whether people who need help in their careers and in their lives doing it on their own, looking for people who could become their mentors. And you were one of the very first supporters of the idea that this could work, right, in terms of a platform-based approach to mentoring where people anywhere in the world can actually connect with each other. So thank you for bringing up that point. I didn't realize that this was your that when I introduced Deepak, that was your first foray into strangers being mentors and mentees. So thank you for that. So going back to Deepak, so when you started the relationship with Mark,
The job that I had before, it's in terms of working with students and looking at how to help others develop professionally. I thought about that, but that was the idea of working with students who are maybe 18 to 20, or people that are still currently in academia, ready to get their first job. One of my thoughts were, okay, well, I'm currently on my second job after grad school. It's there's more that I want to get out of this. And so who's going to mentor me? Like without me looking at my immediate colleagues and or somebody who's maybe an immediate supervisor. So I think my goal was like to I don't know if it was necessarily to get a specific new job at the time, but it was really more so this idea where, if there is a way of looking at a new job, if there is a way of thinking about my skill set or thinking about my experiences so far, that a mentor would be able to help me do that. For instance, when you think about day-to-day life, day-to-day work, it's a very easy way to write a resume would be just listing bullet points of things that is on your day-to-day checklist, but it doesn't really highlight your accomplishments or your strengths in terms of what you're doing in life. And I think, or in terms of like your job and how that defines your life, that's oftentimes the way how you tell a more complete picture of who you are. So I think I was looking for somebody to be able to help me with that. And I think just kind of in my first original conversations with Mark, I definitely got the sense, it's like, okay, like this person has, had a very solid career in the world of technology, IT, software development, and business. And knowing that that's where to say like, the big wigs who can not just talk but actually do things and accomplish things and change the world for the better. I think that was something that I was looking for, and I was really happy to see that like Mark was very much internally connected to something like that, and that's what I was looking more so once I got to know him.
I understand where you're coming from in terms of asking what is next for me. Is it a new work, or is it a new organization, or is it a new industry? I think I can relate to that because as we go through our careers and life, we come to those points where we're happy doing what we're doing, but eventually we think that we could add value somewhere else, or doing something else. I can relate to that stage that you described. So, Mark, what were your initial impressions based on the conversation that you had with Deepak? Did you have any doubts that you were the right mentor to help him out? Or did you think that the paths that you took, that he's taking and you have taken, could be helpful?
I don't think there was ever an instant that I doubted whether we could develop this mentoring relationship. Now, I know I don't have all the answers, but I do know that if he has issues that I perhaps can't answer immediately, I would be able to find the answers and think of the right approach that could somehow help him. You see, for me, to mentor someone means you need to think for the long term. What is the well-being of that person? What makes that person tick? So when I first met him, as you have gathered through his conversation, he wasn't quite clear what was the goal that he had in mind either. So my job then is to try and pin down step by step what are the things that would be beneficial for him, uh, and knowing that that position may shift or may change over a period of time. Now, neither he or I knew that we will still be in this relationship 5 years hence, but the fact was, as you discussed, as you work through issues, your friendship developed. And I must say one thing though, unless you really like people and you want to help people, you can't be a mentor. Mentoring is not about a simple process improvement, because if you do that, you must well just hire a consultant. But a mentor is someone is personal, who cares and understands and have empathy about the work that you do and how you feel about things. And so, in nurturing that and working from day one, I think my goal was to try to understand Deepak better, know what buttons need to be pressed so that he would react in a certain way that would give him the best edge in his career. And I'm as much a learner as he was. So sometimes people misunderstand that the mentoring relationship is someone always knowing more than the person that they're mentoring. But in the relationship that we had, I learned much about how to deal with things, how to look forward to new developments, and how to anticipate things that we may not necessarily appreciate. So it's a learning experience for both of us, even from day one.
In terms of where the relationship has led to this day, where Deepak is at right now, and feel free to describe what you have achieved so far, Deepak. Do you think this is the culmination of the mentoring relationship? Is there a place to go to after achieving what you have achieved so far, Deepak? And what might that look like? It would be interesting to listen to both your perspectives and insights on that curious question.
There definitely is a lot of possibilities. There was a moment when I think in the year 2017, 2018, after knowing Mark for about 3 or 4 months, I was looking to go from one industry in student affairs towards the world of philanthropic fundraising. And I remember he had given me a lot of advice in terms of how to look at fundraising from the perspective of not just accumulating money from donors to collect cash just for the sole purpose of getting cash, but to actually use it to tell a story and how that money can make an impact on an organization that I was in. So I took that advice and tried to see how that could work. And needless to say, it's the advice was very good, but unfortunately, the place that I was, it didn't quite work out in the way that I was hoping for. And so I was like, okay, maybe that's not the right field for me, or at least like the world is telling me this is not the right field. I need to try something else. So then I told Mark that I was interested in doing a little bit more with learning and development, so which is the line of work that I have gone into now. So it was about 2019, or late 2018, early 2019, when I decided that was the way that I wanted my career track to go. And next thing I know, like Mark just had a lot of advice in terms of how to look at learning and development from the way of training employees, training professionals, and something that I can tell he definitely had a lot of direct experience in. So but I do wonder, had I switched into a different industry, not fundraising, not learning and development, would he know that? I assume that he would. So I think in the sense, it's, I think he definitely had my personal interest at heart, professional interest at heart. And I could really see that this was the right match in order to make sure that something like this could be sustained over the long term. And I could definitely see it continuing on as our lives continue.
That sounds really wonderful. Mark, would you like to comment on that? The journey that Deepak has had over the last 5 years and your take on that, how you see it and how you see the next years going.
I just want to make the comment that not all mentoring relationships necessarily have to last a long time. And that doesn't mean that it is not a good mentoring relationship either, because it's all based on the need of the individuals, both mentor and mentees. And I've had quite a few cases whereby I mentor someone for 1 or 2 years and will mutually agree to stop the current arrangement of mentor-mentee relationship and then return back to the old friendship that we had. Occasionally, these people might still come back and ask for advice and guidance, but we won't meet every month. You know what I'm trying to say? So you don't do the regular mentoring process as you used to, as intensely as you used to when you were engaged, but you remain friends. And there would, no, I mean, unless there's a major disagreement or unhappiness, which usually shouldn't be the case, we mentors should value whatever time we are given with a mentee, so that if we could spend time with them, we spend time with them. If it came time for us to say, hey, I am busy now with the family and I got a very busy career, and the mentee felt that the previous arrangement is no longer feasible, I think it's perfectly okay to say, well, let's continue as friends if you wish to contact me anytime, but we are no longer necessarily a mentor mentee on a day to day basis. And I think these things are healthy if we look at it from a positive point of view. Our job is not to own someone and have to keep on for life. But as long as there is a way that you can help someone if they come back, and I still have people who I mentored years ago who would ring me once in a while and say, I got to pick your brains. That's perfectly fine, and we should be open to help people with that. My suggestion is the relationship we have with together has developed perhaps into a friendship, and I honestly don't know where the future holds. What I suggest is, as long as I have the energy and the ability to help Deepak, I won't say no. If it goes to a less frequent regular catch up, and that's also fine. I think it is kind of looking for the well-being of your mentee and whatever is best for them, instead of saying, I have a relationship, I will just keep this going. That is not necessarily something that we should focus on.
Thank you for that clarification. And also, that is a good actually lead in for me to explain further, just for a moment, that when I pitch the mentoring club to mentors or mentees or even volunteers that are joining our community, I always tell them that you don't have to have a mentor for life, right? You could have a goal, and then on the platform, you can select potentially right mentors for whatever the goal might be. And just by assessing what your current strengths are and what your current weaknesses are in terms of skills, then you can select the mentor that could be helpful in developing the skills that you need to achieve that specific goal. And therefore, it could be like 6 months or 1 year, and then you can go ahead and once you have achieved the goal, you can go ahead and thank the mentors that have helped you get to your goals. If you need other mentors for whatever it is that you have achieved. So for example, from an individual contributor, you've become a manager with the help of some mentors. And when you're already a manager, you would need a different skill set that you need to develop in yourself. And you can go back to the platform and the mentoring club to look for other mentors who can help you while you're in that stage of your career and life. Your relationship, Deepak and Mark, is one of the few exceptions that we have in the mentoring club. And it is the longest. I can say it is the longest because we had like 5 pairs of mentors and mentees in 2017 during our trial program. And you are the two people that have really taken the relationship to the next stage of friendship. Thank you for giving me that opportunity by mentioning that, Mark, that you don't have to stay together for life. As mentors and mentees, you can be friends. Now, a question to Deepak is, you may have had other maybe informal mentoring relationships or some kind of an advisor type of relationship with other people. Where you are at now, do you see yourself benefiting from adding new mentors to your journey? Do you see any need for connecting with people now that you're in this space of learning and development? And I know you mentioned that Mark has a lot of experience around that.
I still enjoy, working with Mark. And no, thank you very much. I feel like we have just broken a Guinness Book of World Records for what started as a startup and is now a well-oiled machine and continuing to do so. Yeah, I think, within this larger network, if, whoever's watching this or listening to this podcast shortly after this is done recording, yeah, if anybody has anything in the world of learning and development, I'm relatively new to that profession, and something that, like, if there is something to understand current trends, current things that I should be aware of in that line of work, maybe if somebody has been doing that for a while, then yeah, I'm definitely not opposed to connecting to a mentor in that area. And the same thing, like, as I get older too, I'm not opposed to being a mentor to somebody else that's either looking at something similar, whether it's a career change, a career shift, or thinking about new ways of thinking professionally. So that's definitely something I'm not opposed to, even shifting my responsibility or my level of engagement with this group either.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. It's something that we really cannot tell what will happen next. I'm always up for curiosity about, oh, what are people thinking now? So thank you for sharing that, Deepak. It's kind of off the discussion a little bit because around mentoring, I guess it's still related, but I just wanted to delve deeper into when Mark mentioned that he's retired. And we do have a few mentors who are at that stage where they're retired and they're taking care of their grandkids. In your case, just a quick view or review of your history in, from corporate to getting retired and to getting attracted to helping people through mentoring. Could you tell us a little bit about how that transition happened or what was the realization? And I'm asking this maybe for those people who will be listening later on, they can assess if they're at the right state of life to become mentors to others. That's actually where the curiosity is coming from for those people who have achieved so much already in their professional careers. How does one transition into saying, yeah, I want to become a mentor?
I want to make a comment right from the beginning that if you had been engaged in a very busy professional job, like let's say you are a very senior executive in a company, that actually is the time that you start mentoring because you are in a position of influence, you're in a position that people look up to you, your example is watched by all the subordinates. So mentoring even some of the employees or some of the subordinates, it's something that is necessary and worthwhile. And I did that at that point in time rather than transitioning. But the actual involvement of more mentoring work, and particularly with the mentoring club, only happened after I retire. And it's only because I feel that there's no really such a thing called, in my book there's no such thing as retirement. You want to retire into something. You don't want to retire into nothing. As you are an experienced executive, you have learned lots in the corporate world. The give back time, like what Liesel is doing, is when you stop doing your full-time job and you return it back to the people who could benefit from the pains and the scars that you on your back so that you can help people understand. It is important for us to plan our retirement. And if we think we have had a good, successful career and learned good things in our life, it is a good thing to plan now and say, when I retire, I'm going to do some of these things to give it back so that the young executives can learn the ropes and I could walk alongside with them and encourage them and help them build a great career. And remembering that very often mentoring is not about just helping someone to achieve a career goal. Along with it, there has to be a fair bit of culture, a fair bit of personality development, leadership traits that you invariably need to pass on because you want someone to be really successful and be respected as a leader. It is a holistic approach. It's an approach that actually helps a person to be a better person, to appreciate other people, to have empathy with other people. Otherwise, just being good in the job is not quite enough. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yes. And with that, this is for Deepak. What are the crucial lessons that you have learned on this journey with Mark? And I will ask you the same question, Mark, after Deepak.
Being open to any kind of a possibility, most definitely, if anything, being open to diversity of thought. It's I hear that all the time, in terms of see the world from the perspective of somebody else, and step outside of your comfort zone or your day-to-day bubble. Like, I think that's the big one, like definitely stepping outside the bubble. I thought that was probably something that I was really most excited about, and it definitely came through to fruition. If there's anything I could say that I learned a lot about democracy in Australia. Just when I think about the way how things are done politically, professionally, through the world of business, even through higher education in the world of Australia, and its connections to the international market, to the global market, and the way how, when you think about the way how the world is very, like, very internationalized and very globalized right now, and continues to do so. I think that was definitely something that I probably would not have gotten in my day to day job. But I think talking to Mark a little bit more was definitely one thing that really helped me gain that perspective a little bit more. So I'd say for anybody who's looking to have this type of a connection, I think this is a good way to sustain that and learn.
Thank you for sharing that, Deepak. And Mark, what are the crucial lessons for you? I know that it's not just a single career goal or a set of goals, but it's all about the person, developing the career and life of the person in a holistic manner. Based on the experience that you've gone through with Deepak, what are the crucial lessons that you are taking away from the relationship, or meaning from the experience, that led you to think that that is the way to go, right? That leadership, development, a holistic approach to the person and not just goals.
Just thinking about our situation, I can think of two crucial lessons that I've learned. The first one is whether I can truly appreciate Deepak's needs. And you may recall during this time we've gone through pandemic in both America as well as Australia, and actually all around the world. And much of the world's been locked down. And the issue is people's need changes depending on the circumstances and the challenges that they face at that particular time. When we go through our mentoring relationship, I think I mentioned earlier on, even Deepak himself wasn't entirely sure what is his ultimate goal that he wanted, right? He's just initially looking for a potential to a better role. And then, but where does he go? Where's the direction he goes? So there's a little bit of trial and error, in a sense, talking it through, experimenting, finding out what is available near him, and then venturing out to do that. So the lesson for me was that I need to constantly recalibrate what I think is the need in Deepak's mind right now. And I must not fixate my thinking onto just one issue that I thought I understood, because that will change over time. And indeed, it has changed over time, hasn't it, Deepak? The situation has moved. And so as a mentor, you need to move with it, because we can't say because we understood it at one point and therefore that was it. The second thing was because of our, and this is what I learned, but particularly unique because I'm in Australia and he's in the US, because of the time zone differences, very often there are things that perhaps I like to help, but I need to put extra effort in to get to get to him on time because, for example, just reviewing a document or maybe an advertisement to see whether that job has got some issues that he need to be aware of. And if I was faithful in what I want to help him with, even in applying for a job, I need to read the spec of the job that was being offered. I need to understand what organization it is. And sometimes I wonder whether Deepak thought I was asking too many questions because I wanted to know whether the job he's applying is really suitable for him. And are there any pitfalls in the job in terms of what they have crafted in the document? So I need to read it and give him the feedback. And Deepak will remember the number of times I cautioned him on some of the advertisement that asked for certain things and he need to deliver certain things in order to even apply for that job. And the second thing, of course, is if you review any document, you need to get it back to him on time for him to make the application. Because very often some of these things are urgent. And so if you are truly thinking of the well-being of your mentee, you have to put your heart and your energy into to make sure that you meet the deadline. Because it's nothing more disappointing when you expected your mentor to give you feedback and it didn't come or it came late. And so that was one of the crucial lessons for me to make sure that I juggle over all my other roles to make sure that whenever I'm asked to do something, I hope I haven't disappointed him too much in that when I responded, I can at least give him appropriate advice and guidance and on time as well.
Wow, that is a admirable dedication and commitment, and that is true. If we do care about the lives of our mentees, then we will be looking at those tiny details about the needs that they have in terms of responses from us. So I totally am with you on that, Mark. If you were to give an advice, Deepak, to anybody who's thinking of whether they need mentors, what would you tell them?
If there's anything that I've learned just through this process, and even ironically in my new field in learning and development, is the idea that coaching and mentoring is definitely something that it goes a long way. It's a combination of like putting the work into it yourself, but then also being able to know that you do this for an overall holistic reason, like a reason to grow and a reason to develop personally and professionally, not so much as a means to an end. So I think sometimes what happens is, it's easy in day to day to just to do tasks like as a means to an end. Like you eat food because you're hungry and you just don't want to be hungry anymore. You exercise because you want to lose weight. It's just like whatever it is. Like there's always a reason why somebody will do something. But when you look in the context of mentoring, it's really an idea that it's a lifelong journey. And so, to anybody else who's looking to do this, looking to connect, it's not it's an investment in yourself, and it's an investment in potential relationships, and something that I think is worth pursuing.
I've heard feedback like it's scary to be vulnerable to other people, especially if it's a stranger. What would you say to that?
You don't have to tell your mentor everything. It's you don't have to have the best of a personal relationship with them. It could still be a little bit of a working relationship, and that's fine. It's almost like it's like a friendship. I think it's easy to, for some people, it might be easy to strike up a conversation with a stranger, but that doesn't mean you tell them your whole life story. And then there's also some people that you've been friends with for a long time, but they don't know all of your secrets. I like to use the analogy. It's like a poker game where if you have certain cards, like you don't show all your cards on the table yet. You show them when you're ready. Sometimes that's also where the element of mystery lies. So, and that's fine. It's hopefully we're all free to do to our level of comfort. I definitely hear on the vulnerability side. It's okay to it's okay to discuss things that like where you want to go and what you're most excited about. I think typically like those are things where it may not come out in a sense of vulnerability, but it's more like in a sense of hope and joy. I think vulnerability is oftentimes where we feel that it's a shortfall, like something that we're not doing very well, something that we want help with, but we don't know how to ask for it. And sometimes that means that might be admitting a defeat or something that's a defect in one of us. So I would say, like to anybody who's worried about the vulnerability aspect, wait until you're ready to talk about it, but don't feel obligated that that has to be the first thing you discuss. Or, like, in other words, you don't have to put that card out on the table yet.
That's very insightful. You're not obligated to divulge anything that you're not comfortable talking about. Because at the end of the day, you're trying to get into a mentoring relationship. It could be helpful to you and what you're trying to do for your career or for your life, but it doesn't mean that you have to put everything on the table right away. So it's a great way to look at it, Deepak. And I got a note from Oki Oki. Are you okay? Is your microphone okay? There you go. So
Yeah, perfect.
go for it.
First of all, thanks to everybody on the platform. It's been really great just listening in, even though there's been a whole lot of things going on in the background. So thanks for the mute button. But yeah, I just had a quick one for Deepak. So I'm just, while you were talking, I was just having this flashback regarding, the whole 2020, 2021, how everything has changed since previously. And the idea of mentorship initially circled around physical contact more than, some sort of virtual contact. I feel like technology just made everything more of like virtual now. So I just want to hear some of your thoughts regarding what are the things that would you still vouch for physical mentorship over like virtuals? What are the merits and demerits, pretty much? Would you say? Would you agree that the fact that mentorship in is has been redefined since in the last couple years, and that's kind of influenced the definition of like mentorship because things are happening in the virtual world like 95% of the than 100% initially, where there was like a high likelihood chance of meeting your mentor, meeting your mentees, and just physical collaborations.
The same is also for me. Like, a lot of students, clients, associates that I have met have essentially been online in the last 2 years. And ironically, even like a lot of them are very local, like here in California and the San Francisco Bay Area. So yeah, I think it's if there's anything that I could say is that we're probably looking at a new generation of people, like not just young people, but even like, business folks who are probably going to be interacting virtually for a very long time, as awful as the pandemic has been for a lot of us. Technologically, in terms of like the way that we have connected, have really given us a chance to at least have these types of interactions, speaking, dialogue, and just chance to build. Even before the pandemic, I'll say even texting was probably something where a lot of people don't always just pick up a phone and call each other anymore unless you actually plan to do that. So I get that. I think there absolutely is an opportunity to do this more virtually. Although at the same time, I would hope that it doesn't become the only way that all of our interactions are solely virtual. There's something nice about just getting up and doing something in person, putting the phones down, closing the laptops, and actually just doing an activity as a group. So I have been doing that as well. So I'm not solely virtual. So yeah, I think kind of a mix and match. But for purposes of networking and mentoring, I think this is definitely something that could work pretty well.
That's very helpful. And I was just wondering, the even on this mobile platform like Clubhouse, I was just wondering why the creators deliberately went for the audio versus video. Because I was just wondering, maybe that was because of the engagement, the fact that you're talking, you don't want to be, some overly permissive video just on your face. Many people will probably feel more comfortable behind the audio versus video in some cases. So maybe that is something mentorship can consider. What do you think about that?
In my interaction using Clubhouse as an app, it's I kind of see it as a podcast, and very similar to like a podcast, like this idea, like when you're driving and you just need something to listen to. I think that's where it is. Like, this is like one of those. This is definitely like a hybrid of something that you both listen to and engage with. So it's I think it's good. It's in terms of video, I think luckily we do have those options like WebEx, Zoom, Teams, and things like that. So I think this just serves the purpose for something else, like another way of at least engaging each other auditorily.
Okay, if you don't mind, we're part of the same community. Go ahead and say a little bit of background about yourself.
Thanks for the opportunity. So, yeah, my name is Oki Ola. I my 9 to 5 is a cybersecurity engineer in architecture. So I'm doing a whole lot of scripting and just doing a whole lot of framework and new projects. And outside that, I'm doing a whole lot of personal projects, some of which can be like software as a service. I've a few domains and website that I run for startup. It's called Folio startup for collaborations for startups pretty much. And yeah, I'm always looking to innovate and have an idea, put it on the paper, and trying to see how far I can get that to make some meaning. So yeah, that's me.
I just want to give Deepak and Mark a chance to give their closing statements. Anything that you'd like to leave as a message to all of us listening here, and for those people who will be listening to this recording when we publish it in our social media channels, please go ahead and do your closing statement.
It's definitely been wonderful. Something in the spirit of when this first started up, it may have been a startup, it may have been an idea. We probably would not have known where this was going to go. Being willing and open to this idea of mentoring, I think that was something that's amazing. And that's the same idea when you think about businesses of the future, industries of the future, ways that people engage. Humanity is always evolving. I know that sounds very cerebral, but like this idea that as you look at the way people are evolving and their needs change all the time, there's always going to be a new invention, a new app, or a new way of doing things. Having a mentoring group, and I've gotten a chance to talk to other mentees and other mentors just kind of intermittently through this process. It's really amazing to see just how socially, culturally, and professionally diverse this entire network is. To know that, at the end of the day, what brings them back together, no matter what industry they're in, it's this idea of learning from each other, learning and professionally evolving from each other. And I think as long as that there's a desire to continue that, that would be something where I think this would be really strong and powerful and continue to be impactful.
Thank you. Mark?
When you first invited me to participate in this mentoring club, I immediately thought it's a great idea. And I think it's a very noble exercise that you have thrown yourself into, giving your retirement years into developing this to give back to the next generation. I personally think there's nothing more worthwhile than for people to consider, who are experienced people, to give back to the next generation. So there's a call for people to become mentors, and even those people like Deepak, who have an interest in becoming a mentor to mentor the next generation. I think that's never too early to start. But the point I want to press upon the mentees in choosing to becoming involved in a mentoring relationship is you must think through your objectives. As we all know, objectives of a mentoring relationship ranges from becoming a better person, becoming a greater leader, right down to achieving a particular goal. And some of those particular business goals can and or may not be necessarily satisfied by a mentor. So you need to think through what are the things that the mentoring club can offer, because otherwise you may be disappointed if you expect to come in and then someone will take you and offer you a job, because it's not a networking for job offering type situations. If that happens, that's fantastic, but that's not the objective of the group. So for mentees, you need to think through what would be the benefits that I gain if I invest, because the key word is you have to invest your time, become vulnerable, as it was described before, in a way, by sharing your life with somebody else that you may not have known very well. And therefore, the selection and perhaps the comfort that you have with a mentor becomes important. If you strike the right balance, then the relationship will flourish and you will get a lot more than you bargained for. Someone actually said to me before, a good, successful mentoring relationship is one where much is accomplished in the end, but the relationship remains warm and cordial And neither the mentor nor the mentee are exhausted or stressed out, because there are times when things don't go the right way. It actually adds stress to the mentee, because the mentor may not be sensitive enough in their anxiety to help the mentee, could be exerting some pressure to encourage, if I use that word, to do certain things or practice certain things. And it actually added additional stress and difficulty to their mentee. So we would hope that a successful one is one whereby you both get to know each other, you develop a great relationship, you're happy to talk to each other about anything, and at the end of the day, you achieve the things that you want to achieve, but you come away feeling refreshed, feeling positive.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you very much for all those thoughts and advice for those people who are listening to this conversation. Please feel free to follow all of us in the various social media channels and here on Clubhouse. And if you have any questions at all about the Mentoring Club, please feel free to drop me a message again on any of the social media channels, including Clubhouse. And I would like to invite everybody to our rooms here on Clubhouse every Tuesday at 5 p.m. Pacific time and Thursday, 9 a.m. Pacific time. So again, we chose afternoon and morning so that we're able to cover the various continents where we have mentors and mentees in, and we'd like to continue growing and expanding our community in those countries or those regions. So if you know of anybody who is ready to give back as a mentor, please send them my way. The same way for mentees. If you know anybody who would like to reach out to mentors, experienced people for help, then same thing, send them my way, and I'd be happy to make the connections to the right mentors who are in our community. And as a nonprofit organization, we're continuing to raise funds through grants, donations, and fundraising initiatives or fundraisers. We actually have this coming summer, summer here in the U.S. not not for you. Oh, actually, July is that. Oh, no, no, no. That's fall, winter for you, Mark, right? In Australia. So
Yep.
I just want to invite people to join us in that fundraiser. It's called Give Back, Lead Forward Virtual Run, Walk, Bike. And that will be another way for us to raise funds for the Mentoring Club so that we can grow our organization and have more people to help us support our community of mentors and mentees. And with that, thank you very much to everybody who are in the room and who will be listening to this as a replay and in the various social media channels. Thanks, Deepak and Mark. Really appreciate that both of you have shared your stories around your mentoring relationships. And thank you, Oki, and DQ for staying.
Thank you.
Our pleasure. Thank you, Liesel. Thank you for organizing this as well.
You're very welcome. It's my pleasure. I'm more than joyful to do this. Take care, everyone, and enjoy the journey.